Namaste and welcome to today's session. Today we are going to be starting with a new subject. Okay, you might be wondering what is the subject? The subject is environment or environmental studies. So this plays a very important role in UPSC because after the merger of Indian Forest Service and this UPSC civil services examination, you can always expect a majority or a major chunk of the questions to be from this particular subject. Overall, the subject is very easy, and with these video lectures, okay, after viewing these video lectures, you wouldn't have to go outside and refer any other books, because this video lectures will be very holistic and it will cover everything which is there in the books and otherwise, right? So without much ado, let's move on and let's learn about what exactly we'll be studying in this environmental studies. Okay, first let's cover the simple topics first. So first we are studying with this environment. So what exactly is this environment? Now, so many times you would be noticing these terms ecology, environment, and usually they are used very interchangeably. But is there any difference between both of them? That is there any difference between what we call as environment and what we call as ecology, right? So the first one is ecology. Okay. So first we'll be looking at the definition of ecology. What is ecology? Ecology is defined as the scientific study between the relationship of a living organism with each other and with their environment. Okay, that is what living as a living organism, what we share with the environment. In other words, it is also called as a reciprocal relationship between organisms like microbes, plants, animals. Animals means human beings also, and a man with their environment. Okay, that is, imagine this, it's a reciprocity based relationship. That is, we expect something from the ecosystem expects something from us. So this beautiful relationship of reciprocity between all the living organisms with its surrounding environment is called as ecology, right? So these are some basic facts. In 1866, this ecology word was coined by joining two Greek words. One is called as oikos, okay, meaning home or a place to live, and second one is called as logos, meaning study. So nothing but study of your home or your surroundings is ecology. Like, how simple is that, right? In simple, it is the study of the home of nature, like how you feel at home of nature, right? Next, we are coming to what exactly is this environmental studies, okay, or environment as we call it. So what is the definition? The sum total of the living, non-living components which influence the events surrounding an organism. Okay, so here we are talking about the sum total of all the living beings and all the non-living beings and their interaction with their events which surround the organism. So this mainly consists of two components. The first one is biotic and abiotic. So biotic means what? I'm sure all of us would have heard of this. Okay, it is something which we call as living organisms. That is nothing but we, the animals, plants, all of these consist of the biotic realm. What do you mean by abiotic? Again, we would have learned this in probably second, third standard only, living and non-living. Okay, abiotic means something which is non-living. But here, abiotic means we are strictly not referring to, like, let's say this table or this board or this, pen. What we are referring to is, other factors like food, energy, water, oxygen, shelter, and other needs. So over here, like let's say latitude, longitude, heat, insolation, water, these kind of things which generally do not have life. Okay, we would consider probably water as Gangama, but strictly speaking, it belongs to the non-living realm only, right? Like, for example, it belongs to the abiotic realm. So these are all called as abiotic factors. So now coming back, this biotic and abiotic factors, that is living and non-living, the sum total of this biotic and abiotic, which influences the events surrounding a particular organism. That is, for example, let's say I am an organism. Okay, the sum total of all the interactions which I have with living things and the non-living things, like for example heat, water, all these non-living things, and let's say a dog and a cat, all of these living things and different humans, these things which influence me is my environment. Is this clear? Okay, now let's move forward. Here we talk about the components of environment. Same thing which we've already discussed. On one end we have the abiotic, the second end we have the biotic. Okay, now what is this? Abiotic, we've already discussed what it could be. Energy, meaning to say maybe solar energy, okay, or wind energy. These things could be, insolation. These things are all energy. Radiation, temperature and heat flow. When we talk of the panchabhutas, that is water, fire, soil, these things are all, okay, again abiotic. Gravity, atmospheric gases and wind, and the topography and geological substratum, right? And biotic means mainly what? Plants and animals. Okay, let's see. Green plants, non-green plants, decomposers. Decomposers means, like for example, we call them as algae, right? Parasites, symbionts. We'll look at what is symbionts in a while. Okay, animals, man, right? So these are all called what? These are all called biotic and abiotic factors. Now, this is very important. Okay, this is the first topic which we'll be studying. It's called as levels of an organization in an ecology. Okay, so what is this levels of an organization in an ecology? First one is there are 6 main levels of an organization of ecology. Okay, in the first realm we call this as individual. That is the smallest conceivable entity in the level of organization. Second, when we increase this, it becomes a population. When we increase it even more further, it is a community. Okay, you increase that even more, you get an ecosystem. Okay, and little more bigger is a biome, and the last biggest realm of living space is called as a biosphere. Okay, let's have a look at each of them in detail. So just look at this picture. This is an individual where you can see a deer. Okay, this is a population where you can see a herd of deer. This is a community where you see deer and monkeys and hare and owl and so many things. Okay, and in an ecosystem you see the sum total of this habitat that is surrounding it and the living species which live in it. Okay, and this is the biome, that is, it consists of a total, like for example, let's say a grassland. Okay, it's a biome, right? In the grassland you will have this living different living species which are there. Okay, with along with its habitat. In the community you will have different organisms. In the population you will have so many organisms of the same species. In an individual there's just one this thing, but the largest one is the biosphere. The biosphere consists of all the sum total of every living organism which is there throughout the earth. Okay, so now a little more elaboration on what we just told ourselves. Okay, first one is the individual. So here it is any individual which has the ability to act or function independently. So this is called what? This is called as an individual. Any individual which has the ability to act or think independently. This is called what? This is called as an individual. Like for example, it could be a plant, it could be an animal, it could be a bacterium, it could be a fungi. Okay, now you might be wondering, how can a fungi think? How can a bacteria think? Like, it has the ability to procure food, it has the ability to reproduce, okay, sexually or asexually. That means it has the ability to think. Here, think doesn't mean you have to be Einstein, right? Second one is the population. Population means what? Okay, we would have probably, read of something called collective nouns in our English class. Okay, so population means it is a group of organisms, usually of the same species, occupying a defined area during a specific time. For example, a pride of lions, okay, a herd of deer, flock of geese. Okay, so these are all what? These are all called population, right? That is a collection of the same species living together, right, in a specified geographical area in a specified time. This is population. Next is the community. So community is very simple. Like, let's say in a particular place there is deers, okay, there is lion, there is some other animal, there is giraffe, there is bisons. Okay, all of them, they're living in one particular place together. Okay, all these animals together, they are called as one community. So communities are named after the dominant plant form or species. Like for example, we talk about the grassland community, which is dominated by grasses, though it contains herbs, shrubs, trees, animals of different species. So these different species, the type of community, again you have two types. One is the major community, second one is the minor community. Okay, first we look at the major community. What is this major community? Very, very simple. Okay, it is large sized, it is well organized, and it is relatively independent, and it depends only on the sun's energy. Like for example, you have the tropical evergreen forest in the northeast. Next we look at the minor community. What is a minor community? It depends on neighboring communities and not completely independent. Like for example, there is a mat of lichen on a cow dung pad. Okay, now this mat of lichen is dependent on this cow dung for it to sustain. Okay, is this clear? So here it is a community all by itself, that is, it draws its energy from the sun. That is why it's a major community. Here a minor community is dependent on an external factor, like let's say a dung beetle. Okay, a dung beetle is dependent on this particular cow dung. If there is no cow only, then where will the cow dung come, and where will the, if cow dung is not there, where will the dung beetle survive? Right? Next, we come to the next bigger thing. This is the ecosystem. So what is an ecosystem? It is nothing but, ecosystem is defined as a structural and functional unit of a biosphere consisting of living beings and physical environment having complex set of relationship. An ecosystem varies greatly in size and elements. Everything is dependent on other species and elements. Ecosystem can be small as a single tree or large as an entire forest. Okay, so what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is a structural and functional unit of a biosphere. This is what you have to remember. Okay, it consists of all the living and the living beings and the physical environment. Okay, so let's say you have a banyan tree. Okay, that itself is an ecosystem where a lot of plants come. There are parasites, there are hyperparasites. Okay, and there is so many things which are going on in this particular banyan tree. Now let's say you remove this banyan tree, there will be no birds, there will be no parasites, there will be no hyperparasites, or everything which is living there, it's basically destroyed. Okay, so in other words, okay, you can tell that ecosystem is nothing but habitat plus community. Now what is this habitat, you might be wondering. Habitat, like you guys have all watched National Geographic, I'm presuming. Okay, now when you watch this National Geographic, let's say you have this particular scene where there's a lot of bisons, there's a lot of lion, giraffe, all of these animals. Now this is saved on your computer screen. Now you just go and start hitting delete on all these animals. Like you delete the bison, you delete the giraffe, you delete the antelope, okay, you delete the lion. Now what is left? That empty space. Okay, this is called as the habitat. Now you put in back these animals. Okay, now you have a functional relationship between this community where all these animals are living together plus this habitat. Okay, so this community plus this habitat is nothing but your ecosystem. So ecosystem is defined as structural and functional unit. I hope this is clear. Let's move on. So what are these components of ecosystem? First one is the abiotic components. Already discussed this: energy, rainfall, temperature, atmosphere, substratum, materials which are organic, inorganic, latitude and altitude. Next is the biotic components, that is you have the primary producers. What do you mean by primary producers? Okay, they are nothing but autotrophs. Autotrophs means which produce their own food. Next one is the consumers or the heterotrophs. Consumers or the heterotrophs, it could be primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, but basically they all eat something to manufacture energy. They eat food to manufacture energy. In case of primary producers, they directly take in the solar energy and convert it to food, like for example plants. Okay, right from the deer, the lion which eats the deer, everything is a consumer or a heterotroph. Next is the goods and services which are provided by the ecosystem. Now think about this ecosystem. What are the services which it provides to us? Okay. What do you think? One is the food. Okay. Second one, of course, is the fuel. Third one is the fiber, shelter, building materials. Basically, everything which we see around us is in one way or the other provided by the ecosystem only. Okay. Next one is the purification of air and water. That is, we keep polluting our environment, we keep polluting our air with a lot of carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, etc. What do you think is maintaining that equilibrium? It is the grass and the trees which suck in this carbon dioxide and give us again oxygen to breathe. Okay, next is the detoxification and the decomposition of waste. Okay, next is the moderation of floods, droughts, temperature extremes. Next is it renews soil fertility and nutrient cycles, cultural and aesthetic benefits. So you see, it has a lot of benefits. That is, the services which are given by this ecosystem are innumerable and very, very pivotal to our sustenance. After the ecosystem, we move to the fifth level of ecosystem, which is called as a biome. Now, what is a biome? You might be wondering. See, try to understand this. Okay, for anything to be called as biome, it has to satisfy two conditions. Okay, what are these two conditions? The first one is it should be terrestrial. The second one, whenever anything has to be called as a biome, it has to satisfy another three conditions. That's the second condition. Okay, first one, it has to be a terrestrial ecosystem. Okay, second condition is that it has to satisfy another three conditions. What are these three conditions? It has to have uniform soil, uniform plant life, okay, uniform animal life. I hope this is clear. Okay, so what did we just tell ourselves? What is a biome? First one is it should be terrestrial. Second one is it should have another three conditions to be satisfied. What are these? Uniform soil, uniform plant life, uniform animal life. I hope this clears it up. Now let's have a look at the slide. Okay, so the terrestrial part of the biosphere is divisible into regions which are characterized by climate, vegetation, animal life, soil type. Okay, so no two biomes are alike. There will obviously be some or the other differences between these two biomes. Definitely, these two biomes will be different in one or the other aspect. So you can state that no two biomes will be absolutely alike. And this particular statement could be a prelims question as well, right? Next, the climate determines the boundaries of the biome and the availability of plants and animals. Most important climatic factors are temperature and precipitation. Okay, so now you might be thinking, now we've studied about biome, give us some examples. What are exactly, for us, with some examples, we'll be able to have a more clearer understanding as to how exactly these biomes are shaped, what exactly these biomes look like, what would be the uniform soil type, uniform animal life, uniform plant life, these kind of things. Okay, fine. We've already, you've already seen a look at this in geography, but just short, intro. One is the tundra. Tundra means what? It is the northernmost region adjoining the ice-bound poles. What could be the plant life, animal life here? Okay, animal life, you would probably have reindeer, okay, musk ox, some lemmings, okay, lynx, these kind of things, and polar bears. The plants would be very less in some or the other places, very hardy species like mosses, lichens, sedges, algae, few of these things would grow. Next is the taiga. Taiga is also called boreal forests. Okay, that means coniferous trees. So where do you have them? In northern Europe, that is, you could tell in Scandinavian countries like Norway, Sweden, Finland. Asia, okay, that is nothing but Alaska and Russia. And North America. In North America, where? In Canada and Alaska. Okay. I'm sorry, for Asia I told Siberia, right? Next, temperate deciduous forests. In temperate deciduous forests, you have something called Central and Southern Europe. Okay, so again you have China, Japan, New Zealand. All these places you have temperate deciduous forests. Okay, deciduous forests, you might know, are the trees which shed their leaves during a particular season. Why? To avoid water loss through transpiration. Next, tropical rainforest. Okay, tropical rainforest, where do you think we would have them? Okay, like for example in equatorial region abound with life, temperature and high rainfall regions. Okay, next one is the savanna. Savanna, we have this savanna which is also called Sudan in Africa. Okay, then we have in South America. We also have this in Australia. Right, so next is the grassland desert. So in this grassland desert, again, we would have North America, Ukraine, okay, which is nothing but temperate grasslands we're talking about. So North America is also called prairies. Okay, Ukraine, we have steppes. We have, what is the characteristics of this? A very low rainfall with low humidity. Okay, so over here we have the same thing, that is we have tundra, we have what flora, that is what kind of flora means what kind of plant life is found. Fauna means what kind of animal life is found. Okay, so we have this flora, that is if it is devoid of trees except stunted shrubs, ground flora which includes lichen, mosses and sedges. Okay, what would the fauna be? Like I told you, we have reindeer, polar bear, lemming, arctic fox, snowy wool, reptiles. Okay, and reptiles and amphibians are almost absent. Okay, can you think of why? Because these are cold-blooded animals. They would need a warm climate to survive. Next is you have taiga. Okay, taiga I already told you, it's also called what? It's also called boreal. Boreal forest. So here you have coniferous evergreen. Coniferous means the trees which look like a Christmas tree. In fact, a Christmas tree is a coniferous tree. So evergreen, mostly spruce and some pine and firs. Okay, so these are different species of coniferous trees. What are the animal life or the fauna you can find here? One is the birds, hawks, fur-bearing carnivores, elks, Siberian tiger, wolves, etc. Okay. Next one is the temperate deciduous forest. Here you have the oak, maple, cherry, beech. Most productive agriculture areas are found in this particular areas of this earth. Okay. So we have different vertebrates and invertebrates. What differentiates a vertebrate and an invertebrate? Vertebrate means the animals which have a backbone. Invertebrate means the animals which don't have a backbone. Like for example, when we talk of a reptile, it is an invertebrate. The next one, okay, and the last thing which we are seeing is the tropical rainforest. So a tropical rainforest, it covers 40% of the world's plants and animals. Okay. So most animals and epiphytic plants. So what do you mean by epiphyte? Epiphyte means creepers, like a money plant. So which goes round and round the tree all the way until the top. Here they are concentrated in a canopy and the tree top zones. So you have this epiphytes which go round and round the tree. Okay, and here because there is such tall trees, there is usually competition for sunlight. We have some other zones as well. That is the savanna. Savanna means what? Tropical grasslands. So here the grasses with scattered trees and fire resisting thorny shrubs can be found. We've already discussed this in geography. Okay, so what would the animal life be? There is immense biodiversity when it comes to animal life. Like almost all animals could be found here. Like for example, antelopes, bisons, zebras, elephants, rhinoceros, cheetah, hyena, mongoose, rodents, everything, lion. Okay, basically when you've seen this Lion King trailer, all those animals which you can see, you can find in this particular savanna type. Right? The next one is a grassland. Here grassland means you're talking about the temperate grasslands. Here grasses, why is it called a grassland? Because the main species over here which dominate is the grass. So the grasses, they dominate the vegetation. Here you have a bison, antelope, cattle, rodents, prairie dog, wolves, birds. Okay, so you have a lot of these. Next one is a desert. Okay, so here you have cactus, sagebush, euphorbias. Okay, you have smaller things like reptiles, small mammals, and birds. So having looked at all of these different biomes, okay, we have an idea as to how exactly these biomes would look like. That is, they would either be a grassland, or they would call it a savanna, tundra, taiga, a desert, okay, and so on and so forth. The last level of this particular ecosystem is called as a biosphere. Now, biosphere is the part of the earth where life exists. Okay, this is the total, conceivable living space on earth is called as biosphere. So for any living thing to exist, okay, what is very necessary? One is the atmosphere is necessary, that is air is necessary. Second is water is necessary. Third one is lithosphere, or the land is necessary. Okay, now you might think anything, any living organism, any conceivable living organism, all these three factors are definitely necessary. That is, think for example, us, that is human beings, air we breathe in, water we need, land we need to survive. Okay, now you might be thinking, how does a fish, okay, how does it need air and land? Like below the particular water there is land, okay, which gives it some seagrass and everything, so that is essential. And inside the water also there is some amount of dissolved oxygen. See, I'm not telling that everything requires of the same proportion. There might be varying proportions of how much requirement you require from all of the three, but the underlying fact here is that you need all of the three to make life, and this life on earth is what we call as biosphere. So biosphere is absent at extreme north and south poles, like highest mountains and deepest oceans. That is why we don't have a particular biosphere here. The living organisms are not uniformly distributed throughout the biosphere, right? So if you see this particular diagram, okay, there is a particular Venn diagram where you have atmosphere, okay, where you have hydrosphere, and you have lithosphere. This particular intersection of this atmosphere, hydrosphere, and lithosphere is what you would call as a biosphere, right? So with this, we have covered all the 6 levels of ecosystem. That is, first we saw the relationship between what exactly is ecology, then we looked into what is environment, then we came to the 6 levels of organization in an ecology. First is we saw an individual, that is anything which could think or act independently. Second one is what we would call as a population, that is nothing but different high number of the same species living together, like for example the pride of lion. Next we saw community, that is different species living together in reciprocity in a particular space. Next we saw ecosystem, that is nothing but habitat plus this community, that is we are talking about the physical space also. Then we talked about what is a biome. We gave ourselves 2 conditions. First is we saw that it has to be a terrestrial ecosystem. Second is we saw that it has to satisfy another 3 conditions. What are these other 3 conditions? The first one is uniform soil, next one is uniform animal life, next one is uniform plant life. So these other 3 conditions being met, next we talked about the different types of biomes which are there, like let's say savanna, grassland, tundra, taiga, desert, so on and so forth. Then finally we looked at the last level of ecosystem, which is the largest conceivable space where life exists, where life as an independent entity exists. That is, it is a sum total of the atmosphere, okay, the hydrosphere, and the lithosphere. All these 3 things, they come together, and finally these 3 things makes life on earth possible. So with this, we have completed the first lesson of this particular ecology series. We'll just pick up where we left off in the next class, okay, and we'll learn a lot more concepts. So this was just the basic introduction, right? We'll keep learning, keep studying. Thank you and have a nice day. I hope you found this lesson informative and useful.